Bar Humbug by Clare London. Drew stood on the bus, his arm gripping onto the overhead strap, his body lurching from side to side with every twist in the city road. The other passengers were crammed in tight, their bodies moving as one, now bearing to the left, now taking a sharp right. Someone coughed in his ear, a horrible hacking sound. A pile of shopping bags toppled over, and clementines rolled all over the floor, squelching under people's helpless feet. A baby started to wail from a seat near the back of the bus. They started a steep climb up towards the mall, and a group of kids lost their footing again, stumbling against Drew with glitter in their hair and tinsel garlands around their neck. They were laughing loudly and, incidentally, stabbing him in the back with a school bag full of books. "Just tell me why," Drew muttered through gritted teeth. "Tell me why every bloody year they cut the bus services in the week before Christmas. Don't they know the traffic's going to be worse than ever? Shoppers, extra staff, poor bastards like us who just want to get home from work without losing a kidney." Joe was pressed up to him, almost nose to nose. He blew out gently, dislodging a stray hair of Drew's that had tangled around his chin. "Can't be helped. It said on the news that the bad weather caused a burst pipe at the depot. Several routes have had to be closed down." Drew grimaced, not sure why Joe's proximity always disturbed him in such a strange, yet strangely pleasant kind of way. "Tell me why bad weather catches people unawares every bloody Christmas. The cold snap comes, the snow falls. It's Christmas, duh. But everyone's still shock horror. My car won't start. My bus isn't running. I've just discovered my coat isn't windproof. I must stock up my house with 300 tins of soup. In case this isn't Christmas at all, it's Armageddon." Joe smiled, presumably because they were colleagues and good friends, and Joe knew Drew's ways by now. And still he was tolerant of Drew's company, day in, day out. Someone nudged past them both to get off at the next stop and pushed Drew up even tighter against Joe. His nose was briefly buried in Joe's coat, and he smelled a mixture of coffee, damp rainfall, and the fresh citrus sharpness of Joe's soap. He took an extra breath, savouring it. "Anyway, it's a good thing, Drew. The change of seasons makes life refreshing. And you're no better prepared for winter, I reckon. I remember last year you left your boots out on the front porch and they filled up with rain overnight." Drew gave a grudging smile back. Joe was smart and cute and usually right, and Drew knew he should be bloody grateful the man found any time for him at all. The bus spun around the junction just a little too fast, and the passenger mass swerved with it. Drew got an umbrella in his shins this time. He peered out of the window between three other upstretched arms. Didn't anyone use deodorant this time of year? Hordes of shoppers were outside the mall, passing the bus like oversized, scurrying, parcel-laden ants. In the background, Christmas music was playing from a loudspeaker, missing 2 crackling notes in every 10. "Tell me why they have to leave all their shopping until the last week," he grumbled. "The bloody shops have been full of the Christmas stuff and nonsense since October. Tell me why the masses have to come out in full force, blocking the streets and trebling the queues at the coffee shops all day long. You mean specifically when you want to get home after a bad day at work?" Joe smiled again. Drew had to admit that tolerance amazed him. When the bus shrieked to a sudden stop because of shoppers spilling out haphazardly onto the crossing, Joe grasped Drew's arm to steady himself. He continued to hold it when the bus started up again. "Some of these people work shifts, Drew. They have to shop when they get a free hour. Never heard of the internet? They make it a social event, you know. It's fun to be out among the decorations and the lights and the music. Fun? Drew groaned and shook his head. No way. Tell me I don't have to listen to the carols as well. It's bad enough trying to find my usual items in shops that are full of inflatable bouncing Santas and winking plastic reindeer. Tell me why we have to put up with enforced jollity, rampant commercialism, discomfort and bad humour all round. Joe's hand on his arm was warm and firm. Drew felt disturbed all over again, and he didn't think it was due in any way to the winking plastic reindeer. And it's the same every year. Tell me something new, he growled his parting shot. The bus slid to a relatively sedate stop at a traffic light. Joe took a deep breath. I'm in love with you, and I want to spend Christmas with you, he said, clearly and steadily. Someone behind Drew gasped. The school children giggled. A chorus of Frosty the Snowman floated through the half-open bus window from a nearby shop, apparently sung by electronic chipmunks. The brakes of the bus hissed and squealed as it prepared to pull away again. Drew stared at Joe. Certain things suddenly slotted into place. They'd been coincidentally meeting at the water cooler for months now, often wandering back to their desks with still empty cups, grinning sheepishly. They always settled up on Joe's old couch to watch the weekend football, even when there were plenty of other chairs. Then there'd been that clumsy and overlong kiss at the office party that still brought Drew hot, kinky dreams and sticky sheets some mornings. Joe gave a heavy, visible swallow. I've thought so for a long time, but haven't actually said it. But that's telling you something new, isn't it? Drew continued to stare. He knew he was blushing. He didn't understand why everyone else on the bus wasn't deafened by the sound of his heart beating. His free hand rested on Joe's waist, and it felt pretty comfortable there. Smart and cute and usually right, he said, nodding like one of the bouncing Santas. Joe looked puzzled by the reference, but seemed happy just to go on smiling. In fact, his smile of relief was so beaming, it'd probably last for the rest of the holidays. It's my stop next. What are you doing for this season of peace and goodwill to all men, Drew? Bearing in mind the enforced jollity and rampant commercialism, and the squashed orange that's sticking to your boot? Drew's mouth gaped like a startled goldfish's. I'm coming back to yours, he said, realization coming late, but hopefully not too late, because it seems I'd really like to spend Christmas with you too. Good. Joe's grin was sly. I've bought a new copy of Phil Spector's Christmas hits to play over supper. Drew rolled his eyes and opened his mouth to protest again, but Joe pressed his gloved hand over it. After all, he said, if there's going to be any lingering discomfort or bad humour this Christmas, I know no one else I'd rather share it with. And for once, but luckily in full agreement, Drew was speechless.